Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. Great Mother is in the game. We've got Conquest going on, so that means it is time for a roster video. Our general structure to these, looking at the Marquees and unlocks. We already know Great Mother is one of them. Major project progress, working towards Baylan Skull and GL Ahsoka, so check in with those. Datacrons, Omicrons, anything that we're working towards. After the last video, we are low on Amis, so we're not touching those. And then addressing raids and other weaknesses that we can improve our roster on. The overview of my favorited characters: Great Mother's just activated, Night Trooper being actively farmed, and then we got Luthen getting prepared for Datacron purposes. But before we start dropping gear, I want to establish the Horde because things are going to change a little bit and I'm looking to free up a column. This column right now is occupied by only Cadme. I want to bring her to Relicate. I don't really need to. I've hit 5.4 score on the raid, the 5.4 million. I want to just maybe push towards 6 and I think I'll be satisfied and start working towards the future raid, even though we don't know what it is yet. But presumably any new characters are going to be related to it. Now this column, this is what I'm looking to change a little bit. This is kind of a mix. It has epic confrontation for Baylan's Skull. In detail, this is what it looks like. We have a Great Mother squad, or at least at the beginning of one, but a mix of relic levels. We got relic 7s for the known Baylan Skull quantities, although I don't know if Great Mother's was like in stone yet. Luthen, we need to get him to Datacron levels. I'm going after that one. Acolyte and Spirit, this is just because it's going to take us a while to farm Elsbeth and Mothers, so putting their relic levels into this spreadsheet is just going to be a distraction. I'm just focused on getting them to relics, and then as we get these characters farmed up, then we'll worry about getting to them to like a Datacron relevant relic level. And with the rest, we have the known GL Ahsoka requirements, but what this is really illustrating is that we are in a really good place with gear. I loaded up on circuit boards the last time we could buy those with crystals. The Electrium conductors were in a pretty good place. I'm never worried about those. I actually have a pretty intense hoard for the materials that can convert into them, but with how long it takes to farm signal data, I don't worry about it. Like, this will be purchased with Mark III currency long before I finish any of the signal data. Not being able to buy Great Mothers to 4 stars with crystals means those crystals are being converted into keypads. I'm going to be in a good spot there. Signal data is not that terrible. Like, that is a manageable amount, so we're in a good place. Same deal with Kairos. I'm okay on the computers. I'm in a surplus mode with the computers. Only the prods, and the prods, that is not a scary number for how big these numbers can get. And then with the Gear 12 Plus materials, the only one that I am negative on is the data pads, and not by much. A couple purchases are going to get us back to a surplus zone, and then we're just building up surpluses with everything else, so my roster can always absorb any new content that CG throws at me. I'm always prepared to pivot to any possible zone CG wants us to go. And it's actually the thing I miss about gear. Like, I liked how hard it was to gear characters, because gearing was a moat. Relic levels, it's not really a moat because all of this is the same. You can always be preparing these resources for a very specific known quantity for characters. It's just more, it's a pain to accumulate them. It's different than this being completely random and not being able to anticipate it in advance. The Great Mothers are our latest Marquee and unlock, so we are going to be taking them up to Gear 11. They're surprisingly easy on gear. You can check out my kit reveal video where I break down their gear. It's only 2 Kairos to Gear 11. That is super easy. There's another Cairo here to get to Gear 12, but we don't need to put that on right now. I'll drop on these other pieces to do it, but really surprisingly easy character, especially for being considered a elite Marquee. I thought it would be a little bit harder. I'm grabbing these for the stats. We are definitely putting this Zeta on basic. We're going to drop the Zetas. I'm in a decent place with Zetas right now, and I do want full functionality. That one's critical. The leadership here, we're not touching Amis on territory wars. Same deal here. I have no idea about mods yet, though. I gotta think about that. But it puts us on track for Baylan Skull, who I do expect we're gonna get before GL Ahsoka. We'll see if like Shinhati or would be a requirement. I doubt it. Like, they gave us like the character art a little bit, but it looked so early in stages that I can't imagine it's part of the unlock. Just part of the squad we'll be needing in the end. But with GL Ahsoka, we don't have have any more known characters. I wish we would have got like one requirement with Great Mother, but that didn't appear. But we can take the Night Trooper up to 4 stars. This squad's awesome. I love the Captain Enoch Imperial Remnant squad. Now, I had left off this Zeta. I'm going to put this Zeta on because now that we have Enoch, this is more relevant. When it was an incomplete squad, that was useless. So it gave me a couple, even more than a couple weeks. It gave me like a month or so of just putting those Zetas on the sideline, waiting to see how the squad developed. I'm still going to be a little bit careful with signal data. Like technically I could push Ezra Bridger to Relic 5 since that's a known character. And maybe we'll come back to it. But right now I'm a little bit more concerned about Datacrons. Now I have not farmed up any Datacrons yet. We just have, we only have the one. I'll be doing that this weekend. Right now we're focusing on building out data conquest videos. So check out those videos if you are still working on those feats. You can see the level of squads that I'm using. Like I'm using a lot of just Gear 11 low star characters. Excuse the quality for a moment. I have to record over some footage because we made some changes to the roster and I failed to capture the audio. Now if you want to hear my full opinions of these Datacrons, check out the Datacron video. This is not a reflection of quality. This is a reflection of my prioritization in collecting them. Where this top row, these are crons that I can just plug into an existing roster. Moff Gideon and Master Qui-Gon, those I think are pretty good and solid, so I want them. Dark Trooper, I think that's going to get supplanted by Moff Gideon. It's solid, it's just not as good as Moff Gideon's. And then Cassian and Shakti, I don't think are very good, but I will plug them in just because we have a squad ready for them. And Morgan Elsbeth and Captain Enoch, those are good crons, but I'm clearly not going to be ready for them for a couple months. But maybe we'll get a season or two of usage out of them in Grand Arena, so I still want to have them on standby. This is something I always recommend you guys do. This next row here with Luthen, this is why we're re-recording this. Now Luthen here, he's not ready, but I do want to get that cron and use it. Plo and Pow, those are characters I do use regularly, so taking them up to relics for their crons would be worth it. And then Gary here, that one is kind of the same deal as like Dark Trooper, where it's interesting, but it's nowhere as good as Moff Gideon, so it doesn't really matter, but we'll grab it anyway. Now Asajj, I'm going to grab it, but I don't like to take those Night Sisters like the Telzine zombies up to relics. I'm trying to avoid it, so that one is one I'm not going to grab, but you guys should if you have them at relics. And then Judge Death, that's one where I think Captain Enoch is just going to supersede it because it's better. And this bottom row here is ones I'm just going to ignore. If I get them, I get them, but they're likely going to be rerolls unless I have everything else. East Koth though, that is a good one. And if you already have East Koth at relics, by all means go after it. I just don't like to go after Datacrons on characters that are useless. And East Koth is useless, and I don't think 4 months of viability is enough to take a character like that up to relics. That's a waste of Kairos, and I consider it a manipulation by CG where they're trying to direct our resources into places that are not very optimal. Now Luthen here, we do want to take up for relics for Grand Arena purposes. So that we are going to do right now. Take him up to Relic 5, have him ready, and hopefully we can find his cron prior to the start of Grand Arena. Because I don't want to do another one of these videos before Grand Arena starts, just because there's going to be so many minimal things. Let's just take care of it right now. And this is well within the budget. We are prepared to do this. Yeah, it's just signal data really. So that is a good place for him, and we can move on. Now Gary, same deal. I'm going to take him up to Relic 3 just so that I can place him on a squad with a Datacron. And that was not within the budget, but it's not that much, and we're in a pretty healthy place where I can afford to do something like that. But what I need in addition to Luthen is I need Saw Gerrera then up to Relic 3 so that a Datacron can be placed to that squad. And this again in the budget, so this is not pulling away from anything to work on this right now. Now the next thing that we're going to do is start addressing other weaknesses. We said this up top, we're going to be looking at Queen Amidala. Now here is roughly how I'm performing in the raid. I just want to bump up these scores a little bit. In Relic 8, that's where I'm stopping. I'm not going to Relic 9 because I don't want to add Relic 9 to R2 as well. Like that's just a lot that's not really all that necessary. So I'm already hitting the score I need to hit. This just makes it easier. Plus, now I can look at like Jar Jar. When I take him up to Relic 7 or higher relics, or maybe a couple of these other Gungans, it's going to increase the reliability of my scores, because right now it's pretty difficult for me to max score the Gungans. It happens on occasion. This is much more common. But if I start getting through those waves a little faster by bumping up relic levels, then I'm just making everything a little bit easier. Same deal with like Maul. Sometimes I can max score. Most of the time I'm getting just shy. shy. And then if I do add a relic to Plo for Datacron purposes, that's going to make it a much easier for me to get better score with one of these remaining teams. For now, that's where we're going to wrap it up. We need more clarity from CG before I'm comfortable working on some of the project luxury characters that I would like to add relics to. Maybe if we get to a position where we're a little bit more ahead on Kairos, I'll feel a little bit more comfortable with that. But it's also more of a signal data issue. We're going to need to build up a little bit more of a bank of signal data before we start diving a little deeper into luxury territory. Check out the Conquest content. There's a ton of that going on right now. Thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.